Hi everybody, I think this is live. I am hoping it's live. Okay. All right. Hi everybody, I'm sorry that this is starting so late. We were having some tech problems, which I think were completely user error on my end. But we are here now. I'm going to give it just a couple of minutes while people are joining, and then I have a few poems I'm going to read for y'all. We may have a visitor during this reading. My cat Bean is lurking around, so he may hop in the screen as well at some point. I'm coming in from Oklahoma, and it's 80 degrees today, which is so nice because we kept having these weird like second and third and fourth winters here. But now it seems to actually be nice, so that's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and start reading. Hopefully you can all hear me. It always feels weird to kind of read into the void, but hopefully this is working, and I'm gonna read a couple poems. All right, so this first one is called In Sickness. I wake to the sound of you vomiting. Beloved, it's 3 a.m. and you are fevered. Clammy eyes blink in the bathroom light. I murmur, it's okay, it's okay. Bring you water and saltines from the dark of the kitchen. My hands smooth your shoulders as I wait with you in the strange half-light of sleep and illness until you can be led back to bed. You are still shivering, and I hold on to you, warm arms waiting for morning and fever break. Years ago, we were new in love and thirsty for everything. Night after night, we'd stumble from the bar, your wallet and my head lighter than before, fall along the sidewalk home, seesaw anchor pull, a one-bedroom apartment with nothing in the cupboard, Jim Beam on the counter. It's so easy to romanticize the spiral from the center. I want you to remember our first frost in Oklahoma instead. How the cold came suddenly and I found 3 dead bees in the snow outside our door. Fuzzy yellow bodies on a pillow grave. They must have been taken by surprise, you told me later as I cried the story to you in our new kitchen. The stove light bathed us both yellow gold. I decide right then to build a nest so deep we'll never have to be afraid of the winter. All right, this next poem is called Shell with Bog and Ghost. And this is one of my newer poems. I wrote this just a few weeks ago. Shell with Bog and Ghost. Imagine you are a hermit crab. Only you have lost your shell home and now use anything small enough to steal away on foot. Walnut or creamer cup, bottle cap or leaf. As you sleep, the edges of your borrowed house pinch your skin. You cannot return or rest or fold your legs around yourself like a prayer. This is how my grief feels, you tell your remaining sisters. There are parts you can't find your way back to. Everywhere there is a terrible irritation. The sounds of another day burning your theft hands. Sand stuck between cartilage joints. Your unborn daughter, only possible, listens inside her own temporary shell, curled in on herself, a seahorse buoying against coral. You know she hears you, burying a mother you might have been. You've already ransacked another home. It's so nice that they show you the little like number of how many people are here in the corner, because it makes it feel more like, oh yeah, other human beings are listening to this, which is so nice. So this next poem I'm going to read is another newer one, and it is called Partial Misidentification with Body. My body startles away from mirrors, from everything, even touch in the bath, a swan song unskinned, pale and unfamiliar. She left me like a missed step down the back porch years ago. I held a flashlight seance for her return. It's hard to explain this invisible loss. I can't identify my Rorschach heart rate. The office elevator is broken again. I take the stairs and the air thins around my fist-headed skull. There are athletic men waiting at the landing with smallest talk about weekends. I am out of breath, and this is embarrassing for them, for everyone. They talk big and loud to cover my lungs' bursting labor. My body is disappointed that I try to stifle her, keep her from panting wildly, long and deep. I try to contain my own frailing. Ask why she never works as hard as I think she should, why she won't shrink to fit herself around my phantom bird bones, pulse racing on the slimmest telephone wire. Right, this one is a bit of a tonal change. For those of you who were born before the 2000s, you may remember Britney Spears's, I believe it was her first or second album. It had a pink cover, and she's kind of like, I think she's wearing like a denim miniskirt, and she's kind of like crouched on the ground on the cover of the CD. And I think about that CD a lot because it was one of the first CDs that I owned, and I happened to get that CD at the same time that I was like really getting into blue eyeshadow, and so I wrote this poem called Hit Me Baby Redux. Brittany looks at me from knee tilt posture. I know she is telling me her CD is full of girl talk, a language I understand at 10 or 11. I spread myself in blue eyeshadow, become ready to be seen for all I'm not. Brittany tells me I can bat an eyelash to the floor. The boys will know. I don't know when they're looking, why I'm special. I find 2 purple sparkle bouncy balls in my bedroom. Tuck their smiling faces inside my training bra. Stretch white cotton. See their grins through fabric. I look so grown, so natural in my mirror. A fantasy choreographed dance through a high school hallway. I know what it is to be wanted. I've watched the music video instructions so many times. My mom is worried. Brittany is asking her boyfriend to slap her. My big sister explains this is just slang, you know, like hit me up. But I don't care about lyrics. The girl talk is in Brittany's midriff, sliding across the gym floor. Eyelashes blush her cheek like I smooth my doll's hair after I learn to French braid. Alright, this is another pop culture poem, I guess. It's a bleeding title, so the title is just going to go kind of straight into the poem. So this is, The heartthrobs of my girlhood are playing serial killers now, and if I'm being honest, this is not a surprise. Everything I knew about desire was zipped into a being looked at-ness. The surveil of an undone dress or slipped shoulder bra strap. What I wouldn't have given to be appraised by boy eyes. How I cried and cried when a stranger on the internet said I was too fat or ugly to get raped. I watched Edward Cullen sneak into Bella's house night after night to yearn for her unconscious body. Wished he would come into my bedroom too. The imagined romance of bloodlust following my dreams. I'd settle for anything. Troy Bolton watching me sing the final number in the school musical, waiting to catch me alone around a corner to take me somewhere private. I was so ready at 15 or 16 to ruin my life for anyone looking in a rearview mirror or glancing over my shoulder while I wrote in my pink diary, I wonder if anyone really sees me. All right, I have a couple more. And then I'm just going to read one from my new chapbook that just came out a couple of months ago. But these are the last two of my newer poems that I'm going to read this evening. So this next one is called Watercolors. I go to the museum to find paintings of bodies, dimpled flesh of women looking over a shoulder, under a leaf. An impossible glow touches them all. A private sun I can't look away from. When I was a girl, my mother showed me a watercolor book on sex. The space between the man and the woman was a tender shadow. I had to imagine what was hiding there. A smooth sweep of skin, animaled and wild. The brushing sound a coat makes when you walk, or something cold melting. The names of parts were a soft annotation, a small afterthought. I learn later to document myself with a hand mirror, look for shade and find layers, place a curatorial sign to name each one. At the museum, I come to stare, wonder if the women ever close their eyes and think of snow. All right, this next one is on seeing one baby shoe in the Aldi parking lot. I buy a pumpkin for 99 cents a pound. Count my change at the register like communion wafers, twice blessed. My husband sees twins everywhere, asks if their parents need both. We pack groceries into our car gently. I say, of course, and don't believe myself. I don't go to church anymore. Hang Saint Dymphna over my desk instead. The patron saint of the nervous, the lost and the losing. What if I take the shoe from the parking lot, offer it to her image, token or barter? I know better. Fall comes over the hills, sweating and coppered, the trees cast in a creeping bronze. The shallow belly breath of Oklahoma farmland. I leave the pumpkin outside to swelter. Dymphna catches a beam from our headlights, there and then gone. So the last thing I'm going to read is a poem from my new collection that just came out with Iron Horse. The cover art is really beautiful, so I just feel like obligated to show that. Yeah, I'm going to read one from this, and then if anybody has questions, feel free to kind of post those in the chat. I understand there's a bit of a delay, so I'll just kind of ramble after I'm done reading, and then I will kind of be watching out for those questions. and I'm going to read this poem I wrote 2 years ago in March of 2020, right at sort of the beginning of the first lockdown. Now here we are 2 years later, still kind of contending with this pandemic. But this is Personal Essay with COVID-19. On the third day of social distancing, my husband is in bed reading a prophecy for the end of the world. He tells me it is a PDF shared on Facebook by someone neither of us knows. I am more afraid than he is, would never seek out knowledge beyond the 4-day weather forecast. There is a phrase for this, about hatching and counting, asking too much from the universe. Something tells me that of the two of us, I am the Orpheus, always looking over my shoulder. I am already wondering if we should postpone our plans indefinitely. Any conversations about family or career, the balance. It is possible to suspend your life like my vacuum-sealed wedding dress. I look to the side of my husband's face at his phone, anywhere to prevent him from vanishing like guesswork. Thank you all so much for listening. This is such an honor to be part of the Poets in Pajamas series, and thank you to Sundress for having me. This is so great. So I'm just going to be kind of keeping an eye in the chat here to see if any questions come in. Oh, excellent. Okay, there's already a question, which is great. Yeah, I can absolutely talk a little bit about my influences. And this is my cat, Bean, who's going to also talk about his influences, which are mostly treats. I think one of my earliest influences in poetry, one of the first poets that I really loved, was the poet Even Boland. She wrote this wonderful poem about her daughter, and it kind of uses the myth of Persephone and pomegranates, and I was kind of obsessed with that poem and just read it a lot, and I find those myths and that sort of like feeling of that poem creeping into a lot of my work still, even like 2 decades later. So she's someone I always, okay, get down, Bea. She's someone I always think of when I think about my influences or poems or poets that I kind of come back to over and over again. I also really, really love the poet Jericho Brown. I just read his collection, New Testament, recently, I think last year, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. If you have not read it yet, I highly recommend it, and I think just the things he's doing with language are so amazing, and I want to be just like him when I grow up. So those are some. Just keeping an eye on this in case there are other questions. Bean says hi back, Sophie. I'm going to have an awkward sip of water while I'm waiting for questions to roll in. Oh, okay. I love this question. There are 2 questions. So Abigail Cloud asked, what non-literary influences do you feel most drawn to? I think pop music a lot. That's something that I find kind of working its way into my poetry a lot. Like especially Taylor Swift. I've been listening to her pretty much nonstop for the last decade or so. And I think that, like, just pop music is one of those things where it gets in your head and it makes me think about gender roles and who's sort of expected to listen to music. And of course, it's also just kind of a bop to listen to. So I feel like on many levels that kind of works its way into my writing a lot. Hopefully that's a somewhat coherent answer, because I really love that question. Okay, and then Victoria asks, what does your new chapbook focus on? A lot on family, I think, and I think isolation a lot too, because a lot of the poems I wrote sort of at the beginning of the pandemic, and so I was thinking a lot about what it means to kind of be on your own and still be thinking of kind of like your roots and where you came from, but also like really have this sense of just sort of being an island, which I think all of us were feeling a lot of over the last couple of years. So I think ironically, right, both kind of connection and isolation are major themes in the book. And there's a lot of love poems in this collection as well, which I feel like is always true of my writing. I'll just give it a couple more minutes. I don't want to miss any questions, but I also realize it's Sunday evening. It's Monday tomorrow. I know we all have sleep we need to be having and stuff we need to be doing. So I don't want to keep anybody too long. But I do just want to thank Poets in Pajamas again for having me on this series. I am such a huge fan of Sundress and everything that they do, so this is really an honor. And thank you so much everyone who came and listened and asked wonderful questions. Oh, I do feel obligated to rep. I'm wearing my t-shirt from The Hunger, which is one of my favorite independent lit journals. They are always taking new submissions, so definitely check them out. They have their online journal publication, and then also they're a small press, and they're really terrific and wonderful. So if you haven't checked them out, you should. That's my advertising bit for the night, and I'm gonna sign off. So have a wonderful evening, everybody. This was great.